Hello and welcome to Macrosutra. Amid uncertainty in global trade, India and UK have finally signed a free trade agreement on 6th of May this year after negotiations that spanned over 3 years. They began in January 2022. And this trade deal is being viewed as a very significant step for both the countries. But what exactly are the gains from this FTA? This is the question that we'll be answering in today's episode of Macrosutra. I'm Apoorva Mandhani, and with me I have Radhika Pandey, Associate Professor at NIPFP. Thank you so much for joining us,
Thank you,
Radhika.
Apoorva.
We've gotten quite a few of audience questions for this episode, but to start off with, I'd like you to lay a groundwork for us
Right.
and tell us about the India UK trade relationship over the years.
Yeah, so India UK trade has been growing at a fast pace, particularly India's exports to the UK, both in terms of goods and services, have been rising over the last 25 years. So, if we look at the data from 2000 to 2024, for which we have the full year's data, FY25, we see that exports to the UK have risen from $2 billion to now $13 billion. This I'm talking about exports of goods. Similarly, imports from the UK have also risen, but overall we have a trade surplus with the UK when it comes to goods. Similarly, on services also our trade with regards to services has increased over time, and now we are exporting services worth $14 billion, 14 billion Great Britain pound to the UK. Particularly, we are exporting services which fall in the category of other business services, which mainly include consultancy, legal consultancy, business process outsourcing, and the other components are travel, telecommunications, and so on. So, in a nutshell, our trade has been rising, and on both goods as well as services, we are having a surplus with the UK, meaning that we are exporting more than what we are importing from them
Right.
in terms of both goods and services. And if we talk about some of the major exports that we export to the UK in terms of goods, these are engineering goods, electronic goods, textiles, ready made garments, leather, gems and jewelry. So, if we compare with the US trade, it's much more modest. But the fact, as you rightly said, it's a very significant deal in this environment of trade uncertainty. At least it gives one, increase in market share for our goods and services to a market. And similarly for UK also, there is a market in the form of India's growing consumer base.
Right. Now you've mentioned that it's a significant deal for both the countries. Why was the FTA so crucial for both the countries?
It was crucial so that, right now, as we are seeing that we are facing this uncertainty,
Mm.
US has imposed reciprocal tariffs, which currently are paused till the early July. But what is important for all countries is to diversify their markets, both for goods as well as services. And as you mentioned in the beginning, that this conversation has been going on for 3 years. So even before the tariff induced uncertainty kicked in, we were in this conversation with the UK on entering into an FTA. We've already signed FTA with UAE, and we are in the process of now negotiating free trade agreement with the European Union. So.
Right.
This is crucial, and at this moment it is even more crucial to nullify or to negate some of the negative impact that could arise due to the tariffs that US will impose. Particularly, one sector which is really feeling the pain of tariffs is our gems and jewelry sector,
Hmm.
because US is accounts for almost one third of our exports of gems and jewelry. Now that we've got market access to the UK, some of this pain can be relieved, some of this it can be cushioned, because we'll have a ready market in the form of UK, because UK also exports from other countries, but we will be given duty free access, so our products will have an edge over other countries. So in this scenario, it is very crucial to enter into FTA so that we gain greater market share, and some of the sectors that are reeling due to the impact of tariff induced escalation of costs, they will be able to benefit from these FTAs.
Right. Now let's get into the FTA and into the questions that have been sent to us. But for our audiences, Radhika has written a very detailed article on this FTA as well. We'll be adding a link to that article in the description of this video, so do read it as well. Radhika, Suman Paul is asking, which Indian sector has the most potential to grow because of the UK FTA?
So there are a lot of sectors which have the potential to grow, and good for us is that a lot of labor-intensive sectors have the potential to grow. One sector which deserves mention here is our ready-made garment sector, uh, uh, because of the LDC status of Bangladesh. Bangladesh already has a duty-free access to EU and Britain. Now, some of that we will be having a level playing field, because now we are also getting duty free access to the UK market. So we will be also be able to compete with Bangladesh with regards to ready made garments. So ready made garments exports are poised to increase. There are some these sari manufacturers, the Tirupur industry, they are already anticipating a surge in demand for orders for saris and ready-made garments once this deal is signed. So again, it's a labor-intensive sector, and again, it's dominated by MSMEs. So to that extent, if we are able to compete through quality upgradation and by easing the constraints of small scale, if we are able to increase the scale of production, then we will be able to meet the growing demand, and we will be able to compete with other competitors, because we have a duty free access. So our products will be more cost competitive. So that is one sector which will definitely benefit. The other sector, as I mentioned, gems and jewelry.
Right.
There, as I said, US demand for India's gems and jewelry has been declining. US is a major market, and therefore it's a very opportune time for the FTA, because we will be able to export some of our gold jewelry, diamond studded jewelry to the UK market, which is also has a luxury market. So these products would be able to find good markets. So there also the manufacturers are anticipating an increase in demand. Other than that, leather, footwear, these are again markets which have a great potential to grow, particularly because currently India's share in UK's imports is very small. So with this duty reduction and zero duty, we have a considerable scope for increasing our share in UK's overall imports of leather and footwear, because before the FTA, the duty on footwear is 16%.
Right.
Now that duty is zero, so certainly it will give a boost to competitiveness. So again, leather, footwear will get a boost. And then in addition, engineering goods and electronics, telecom instruments, organic chemicals, pharmaceuticals. So these are some of the sectors that will get a major boost due to the FTA. And as I said, their share currently in the UK is very small, and therefore we have a huge scope for increasing our share in the overall UK's import basket.
Right. So that's for India. Now,
Mm.
what does UK stand to benefit?
Yeah,
How
UK
does it
is
stand?
very, yeah, that's an important question, because uh, from for UK's point of view, they have put out a technical note on this. The link is there as part of the article. They are calculating the increase in GDP due to this FTA to the tune of 4.8 billion Great Britain pound every year. So that amounts to 0.1% increase in GDP every year due to India UK FTA. They are also projecting increase in wage rate, and they are projecting an increase in trade by 38-39% every year. This is because 99% of our exports to the UK will be duty free, and around 90% of their exports to India will be duty free, and there will be a considerable reduction. Particularly, we import a lot of they are importing whiskey, gin, luxury items, cosmetics, and automobiles. So they are eyeing basically our growing and affluent consumer base. So they think, and they have anticipated this, that because of India's growing consumer base, they feel that they have a good market in India, and because the particularly for Scotch whiskey, the duty has been already, as soon as the FTA will be implemented, the duty will be reduced from 150% to 75%. So that will be a big reduction. Similarly, on automobiles also. So they are anticipating a surge in the demand for luxury products, cosmetic products, automobiles, and Scotch whiskey from the goods side. And from the services side, again, there is a openness from both India as well as UK. So they anticipate that UK's financial services will be able to enter India's market and will be able to provide funding to VCs, venture capital fund, and they'll be able to invest. So again, gaining from the vast untapped potential in India. So that is how both, it's a win-win situation as of now for both India and UK.
Right. We have another question from Satyajit Datta Roy. It's a long question, so I'm going to break it up. The first question that I'm going to take is, what are the key risks that this FTA may throw up?
One of the risk is regarding the carbon border adjustment mechanism, the carbon tax, because that is one stumbling block in the India EU trade negotiation, something which is delaying.
Right.
And also, UK is going to roll out carbon border adjustment mechanism, which envisages imposition of a carbon tax on carbon intensive imports in order to prevent carbon leakage. So what happens generally is that in one country, the norms are quite stringent with regards to the use of carbon intensive products. So what businesses tend to do is that they tend to shift their production to other countries where regulations are much more lax. So to prevent this carbon leakage, they are going to impose a carbon tax on imports that are entering their markets. So as of now, this CBAM, carbon border adjustment mechanism, is not part of the India UK FTA. So we do not get any protection from CBAM. So what it would mean is that once the CBAM is rolled out, some of our carbon intensive imports will face a higher tax and therefore higher prices. So some of the advantage that we are getting due to tariff reductions would be negated. But as of now, that is not part of the negotiation. But India reserves the right to retaliate. So again, it will nullify the advantages from both the sides. So that is one key risk that we see in the India UK FTA negotiations.
Right. Satyajit is also asking, what are the parameters that we can use to measure the success of any FTA? How would you think India UK FTA to pan out based on these parameters?
So see, one of the most important parameter, and that we've tried to do in our analysis also, is to see whether India's share in UK's imports rises over time or not. For example, right now, India's share in UK's imports of organic chemicals is just 1.5%. So there, with the duty reduction and elimination, there is a scope for increasing this share. Similarly, for jewelry, India's share in UK's imports, that means out of 100% of imports, 3.5% is only imported from India. So now again, there is a scope for increasing. So for the key parameter is how quickly and how intensively we are able to garner a greater market share in the UK's market. That would require, okay, once we've got a facilitatory environment through tariff reduction, but we would also have to improve our cost competitiveness, our quality, efficiency, and so on. So that is the most important parameter. And the other is whether the volume of trade increases over time.
Right.
And what happens to trade surplus and trade deficit. A case in point here is the India ASEAN FTA. When it was signed, it was envisaged that India ASEAN FTA will improve symmetry in trade deficits. But ultimately, what happened after a few years, we saw that India's trade imbalance increased. That means India got a trade deficit. So all these things would have to be reviewed over time. So those are some of the parameters that whether our share in overall UK's market become more prominent, whether India becomes a more prominent trading partner for the UK, and similarly UK becomes a more prominent share and a trading partner for India. So those are the two distinct parameters.
Right. Another question is coming from Aditya. Aditya is asking, will this FTA have any impact on any prices of day-to-day goods which are of common use? Because what I have seen here is that major duty reduction has happened on luxury goods like cars, alcohol, and cosmetic brands, whose demand may not be that much in the market, especially among middle-class people. So, will such trade agreement bring any ease in inflation of necessities or necessary goods?
So, if we look at the text of the FTA and what we read about the FTA is that most of these necessities have been carved out of the FTA in order to protect the interests of farmers. Necessities like dairy products, vegetable oils, they are not part of the FTA. So, we are not providing them duty-free access to our these necessity markets, and therefore, what UK will benefit is from the growing middle class and the affluent middle class, and what we will benefit is also that the commodities that are mentioned in the questions regarding alcohol, luxury products, cosmetics, toiletries, all these things are going to become cheaper. So
Right.
it's not it's the middle class could also, the upper middle class could also afford once there is a steep reduction in the prices of these commodities. So this distinction between necessity and luxury could very well get reduced over time,
Right.
because there will be a flood of products which will compete with Indian products, and therefore prices will reduce, and the consumer, the middle class, will have greater access to luxury products. So these are all signs of a maturing market.
Next question is from Sudarshan Kasar. He's asking, how does it impact UK visas for working professionals?
So it's a very comprehensive deal that has happened. It does not only include goods and services. There's also talk about this mobility of labor,
Hmm.
but at the same time, they are also concerned about immigration. So what has been permitted is a temporary movement of workers and intercorporate affiliates from one company to another in the from India to UK for working professionals, for professionals who are working on contractual basis for a temporary period of time. So
Right.
this FTA provides access to these kind of requirements, and it streamlines and enhances the mobility of labor for these purposes. For example, they have a list of occupations, for example, yoga instructor and the others, such occupations where the visa requirements would be more streamlined, and it will permit greater access to the UK market. The FTA will permit, but at the same time, once you go there, you will have to prove your experience and qualification. There is no there is no doubt about that. But yes, FTA is providing is facilitating a greater labor mobility. And the other good thing that they have introduced is that for 3 years, the workers who go there,
Right.
they are exempted from paying insurance. So that reduces the social insurance, the
Hmm.
social payments that they have to make. There is a reduction there, so it that helps in reducing cost and provides an impetus to movement from India to UK and vice versa.
Right. Now, Radhika, you mentioned India EU FTA very briefly. We have a question coming on it. Karthik Parashar is asking, why is it taking so long for the India EU FTA?
So India EU FTA has a there are a lot of such niggling issues, stumbling blocks, because they want India to accede to EU standards. So
Hmm.
it's not just limited to reducing duty on trade in goods and services. It has a much wider ambit, which extends to, firstly, the CBAM, which is definitely a bone of contention, because EU CBAM comes into play from 1st January 2026, and UK CBAM comes into play from 2027. So that is one stumbling block, that what are we going to do about this, because once the costs are imposed on carbon intensive products like iron, steel, aluminium, the benefits from duty reduction would get negated. So that is one. And also it extends to a wide ambit of uh, areas, for example, MSP. They
Hmm.
also want us to reduce protection to our farmers in the form of MSP because they think it's a kind of subsidy that we are providing and giving undue protection. So there are lots of these areas where negotiations are still on, but again, the welcome development is that they have agreed to restart the negotiation, and now the negotiations are going on at full, will start in, is already going on in full momentum. So we should see some result.
Right. With that, on that note, we've reached the end of this episode. Thank you so much for that analysis, Radhika. And thank you to all our viewers for watching. I hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you for joining.